Hey, everybody, welcome to All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. I appreciate you being here on a Monday. Hopefully, you guys have all recovered from Super Bowl weekend. If you got to go to Vegas and got to hang out at the Super Bowl, I'm hopeful that you didn't blow all your money and you can still save some money for my amazing sponsor. Five Star Guitars is based in Beaverton, Oregon, and that means that if you're interested in playing guitar or you want to buy accessories or get lessons, you can order at fivestarguitars.com/all access live. Everything you see there, you get 15% off by using the promo code of all access 15. And since you're ordering from Oregon, there's no sales tax. So you're going to save a ton of dough. So all that money that you would have spent in Vegas, you can actually spend right there at Five Star Guitars. So if you came from any place else other than YouTube, also, please do me a favor. Go to youtube.com/accesskevin and make sure that you not only subscribe, but you also like the channel, and you can also become a member. So members get exclusive access to certain interviews that I've done. So I just had a great interview with Kelly Keagy, singing drummer from Night Ranger, that guy that did Sister Christian. We did the interview at his house. We looked at his platinum records. We went through his drum set. We hung out by the pool, and you get to hang out just as I did by becoming a member. There are also interviews from Cy Kernan from The Fix and Mid-Year from Ultravox. If you become a member, you'll also be thrown into the mix, and I have great prize giveaways for the upcoming Flock of Seagulls shows. So I've got some tickets, I've got drumsticks, I've got all sorts of swag, and lots of backstage stuff. So become a member, and if nothing else, please subscribe to the channel and let everybody else know that you enjoy all these fun conversations. Speaking of conversations, my guest today makes everyone that he has met feel like they are his closest friends and acquaintances. He was the keyboardist from the band Animotion. You've seen him in those old videos of Obsession and Room to Move. And we've known each other for about 20 years or more. And I think you're going to feel like he's family. So all the way from his beautiful place in Santa Monica, California, I've got Paul Antonelli. How you doing, pal?
It's doing so great.
I almost disclosed your address. Didn't mean to, but
Everyone should come over.
Yeah. It's funny, man. Your accent came out right there. Your East Coast just popped in right there. And is that what your family would do? You'd have everybody just come over for a big meal?
Absolutely. We still do it in the summer.
Yeah.
Big the chowder, lobster parties and everything on the Cape, and Christmas.
Oh, right.
I'm at Christmas.
Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, in Boston. Actually, just a little bit outside of Boston in this little Leave It a Beaver town called Avon, which was like 4 square miles, but it was just filled with kids, and it was the best place to grow up. And we never moved. It was always that home. And it was just magical. I was incredibly lucky.
Well, lucky, in that respect, I mean, because family, right? You're still super close to your family. I'm envious of people that can actually still get a chance to go and stay with family. I'm very fortunate that my parents are still around, and they're in Montana. It's hard to get there a lot, but you sound like you get to get back to Massachusetts to see family quite a bit.
Yes, as often as I can, and especially now, since I was mentioning to you that I can work remotely.
Yeah,
as long as I've got an internet connection, I can just zip back, and so I see them now probably more than ever. It's great, just great.
When you go back, who's the cook?
Oh, my sister Jean.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's an art form. It's an art form. She took everything. Both of my parents were really great cooks, and my mom a baker as well. So it was all about food, food and family.
That's beautiful.
And it's like the Italians and the Jews were very, very similar in that way.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by some families that can still get together and everybody gathers in the kitchen. I had Dolly Parton's sister Stella on the show, and she talked about that very thing. Growing up, and there was not a lot of financial in the house, right? The house, her quote, growing up dirt poor, but they were so rich in family love and connection. And
absolutely,
the kitchen and the dining area, they were gathered together, and that was the place, right, where the bonding was done.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And still is,
I love
it's
it.
amazing all these years later.
Yeah, you mentioned your sister Jean. So, did you have a big family?
Six. There's six of us, 3 boys, 3 girls.
Ooh, wow. All
Jean,
right.
Rod, myself, Joan, Donnie, Chrissy.
You're right in the middle?
Yes, I'm the oldest middle.
Okay. All right. So, I'm trying to picture you. There's absolutely no way you were the black sheep of the family. There's no way.
You know what though? But I was grounded the most. I was I swear I was in half of my life, but I think I needed it. I was a little bit, the crazier one maybe. Yeah. And I remember my mom a number of years ago. I'd come home and we were just talking, and she looks away wistfully and she's like, I don't know if I told you this, but when I was pregnant with you, the doctors thought, I was going to have twins. And she goes, that would have been so lovely. I'm like, yeah, what are you talking about? I said, you have such a wonderful selective memory. It would have been like twice as many calls from the nuns. I mean, all of us being grounded all the time. Can you imagine the trouble we would have gotten into?
The nuns. Did you go to Catholic school?
I did.
Oh, yes. I'm also an expat.
Yes, but it was good for me. You know what I mean? It was really good for me. It prepared me for college and all that, even though I'm the only one in my family who isn't multi-degreed. I just went to take music courses that I felt that I could use. Yeah. And then I wanted to get right out there. I didn't care about getting, and my father was the head of the State Department of Education in Massachusetts. So it was always ingrained in us to education. And I really believed in that until something just said, get out there. There's stuff to be happening now. But I took all the music courses I felt I needed, and then boom.
So where did you do this? So you have at least the undergrad in music?
Well, I started over at University of San Diego in 1977, and I was there for I just wanted to see what was outside of my 25-mile radius, like in Boston. So I went to the other side of the country. I actually got accepted into a pre-veterinary program because I wanted to be a veterinarian all my life. But when in my summer of senior year, my interest in music, and it just went, ooh.
Yeah.
And I happened to call them up, and I found out that they had an amazing music program at this school. And so I changed my major, and my father had found some paperwork, and he's like, did you change that? And I'm like, so I lied, of course. No, I just had made a mistake. And I thought, if I can just get on the plane and get out of here, I don't think he'll be able to drag me home. And that's how it started. And then I ended up going to LA in 78.
Okay.
I went to USD after a semester.
Wow.
And yeah.
So did you have any contacts out there? Did you have any way to get into the business, or how did you?
No. Okay. No. As a matter of fact, it was amazing. I was going to Columbia. It was a broadcasting school way back then on Sunset and Vine in the big tower. Music Plus, that was way back when, that was down at the bottom. And they had a restaurant called Simply Blues that had this great jazz music and everything. That was right above the school. And the best thing that happened out of that experience for me was I signed up for a voiceover workshop with a guy named Gordon Bartow. And he just accepted 10 of us to go in there. And of course, at the time they had changed my accent because they said, no one's going to hire you if they can't understand you. So once I got away from the broadcasting thing, then I, developed my accent again, going back and forth, to Boston. But
hold on a sec. I'm going to actually put you to task. Can you turn it off for a second? Can you just get rid of Boston for a moment?
And say what?
How about you can introduce Animotion with your former bandmates? So mention the day, the year you.
Night. You want me to do it without my Boston accent?
Without your Boston, yeah. Maybe you can just you can tell me how you would park the car in the yard, but not in the Boston accent.
Unfortunately, now it'll probably sound really affected because I have to think about it.
Yeah.
So, I'd have to park the car in Harvard. Yeah. You see, it doesn't. It's I would really have to practice this.
Okay. Yeah, well, you don't need that job anymore, so it doesn't matter.
Yard, it's like, boom, boom, boom. I do not need it now. No.
Yes. Okay. All right. So they for a little while they had you subdue it.
So they had me subdue it. I was going into this. I was in this voiceover workshop, and I met two people who were just instrumental in my life after that. One was Jenny Farrington.
Okay.
And Jenny was the head DJ over at the Rainbow Club back in the day. And this is probably back in 78.
Okay.
And the other was Jackie Luth. And Jackie worked for an exec over at ABC.
Okay.
And now she's a producer. She's been doing like all kinds of things over the years. She's amazing. But at the time, you couldn't just walk into a studio and put in an application. You had to be invited in. And so Jackie, I was living in San Gabriel with my Boston roommates at the time, having a wonderful, wonderful time. And then Jenny said, I need a roommate here in Hollywood. Why don't you come out here? And so I got out of the Valley, went to Hollywood. And around the same time, Jackie had said, why don't you come in and put in an application? And I didn't know what was I applying for. You know what I mean? So you're kind of trying to BS your way in. And I got a call about 2 weeks later saying, we're thinking about having you head up the printing department. And I'm thinking, printing department? Don't you have to go through an apprenticeship and all of this? I'm thinking, but I'm like, I'm not going to jinx. I'm just going to go in. And I went in for my interview, and there was a guy who was he looked like a Ken doll. He's like not a hair out of place. I had long hair, beard at the time. I was barely 20. And he looked at me, little smile, and then interviewed the wall, would not look at me again until he went to shake my hand. And I left. I'm like, well, I'm never going to get this. Again, a couple of weeks later, they give me a call, come in. And I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? Run the printing department. They bring me into this little room, and it's a Xerox machine. And it's like, this is your printing. So I'm the Xerox operator for ABC.
Oh, my God.
Now, while I'm there, though, I'm just looking around, finding out what do they offer. They had great benefits. And one of the other things they had was educational assistance. And if you took classes that had anything to do with the broadcasting company, and these were broad strokes, you would pay for your first class up front. And then once you showed them that you passed, they would reimburse you 100%. Then after that, they paid 100% up front. So they paid a fortune for me at UCLA with all these music classes. I think I was making, at best, way back then, maybe a couple hundred a week. But my classes were like $1,600, $2,000 a class. And I mean, that was huge money, back then. And it was 100% a thing. Oh, they paid for everything. So one of the things I Xeroxed was also the job listing. So I would see what jobs were open before I would make my like 200 copies, and they would go all over to the different studios of ABC. And it took 2 years. But once there was an opening in the music department, I had all this stuff behind me, all, the education and whatnot. I made a beeline to the music department, did my interview, got the job, gave my 2 weeks notice. And that's what started me off.
Really? Oh, man, that was with ABC.
And that was ABC. That was ABC. That was back in 79. Yeah.
Unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
Because most people, right, when they go to Hollywood, it seems like if they've come from the Midwest or they've come from a long way away. They get the job as a waitress or waiter, or they're it's usually that starving artist thing for a long time. But it sounds like they almost paved a way for you to. Like this was a destiny for you.
They did eventually. But before that, I'd been working at the Ben Franklin Distribution Center as an order filler.
Okay.
Orders for stores. Oh, no. There were dues paid.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't mean that you hadn't paid dues, but I was thinking about how many people that never get the opportunities, right? Really, I mean, you just had the opportunities waiting for you to tackle them, and.
But you know what? It's like, it's opportunities like, I just learned growing up that if they're presented to you, grab them, because somebody else is right there in the wings waiting. And then you're offered these opportunities that you can kind of, you kind of invent them.
Yeah.
Like when I got the job in the music department, I had a boss, God bless her. She really wasn't into being a boss. She was just into watching her stocks. And
Mm.
so she came in. My technical job was record librarian. And this is before CDs. The producers were supposed to come in, know what they wanted for any of their, for their shows, for their editorials, for their whatever. I was just supposed to check out the album, and she wanted to keep it simple. Well, she would be behind closed doors, and the producers would come in and start asking me, what did I think? Can I, come up with ideas for them? And I'd go to their edit booths, to the different, sets and whatnot. And poor Maria, she had no idea I was doing this.
Really?
So it got to the point where they started giving me screen credit as music coordinator and whatnot. And it became really big. Well, by the time she wanted to play boss again, she came out. She was like, and she saw how big it had gotten. She was so pissed off, and then the producers ended up getting a petition to sign and make me the official music coordinator for ABC.
Wow!
So it all happened. It's like you kind of make your opportunity. You know what I mean? You see, oh, this is what I can do. This over here. How do I make this work?
Yeah.
And it was somebody who wasn't taking care of the shop. So I was able to build on top of that. And that was, one of the shows that I serviced was General Hospital. Oh. And at that time, General Hospital was making 1/4 of ABC's annual gross. Wow. It was the #1 show. And remember, we only had 3 networks back then.
Yeah.
Didn't have 1,000 choices in cable and all of that.
Right. ABC, NBC, CBS, right?
So I was there when I started music there in 82, and in 84, their music directors, music supervisors were going away. They were leaving hospital to do a new soap called Santa Barbara. So Gloria Monty, who was the queen of TV at the time, she was the executive producer at hospital. I knew the sound of the show because I would get Jill and Dominic their music. So she had me come in to interview, and that's how my whole soap opera career started. And that was 40 years ago. It was 1984.
Buddy, and that same time, if you think about it, so you and I know each other from Animotion, right? Yeah. So prior to the amazing, iconic 80s band Animotion,
yes,
you and Astrid Plain were part of a band called Red Zone.
Yes.
And that was the same time that you're getting this gigs.
Let me tell you what happened with that.
Okay.
This is another thing for people to keep in mind too. Because when, are we allowed to say shitty?
You can say whatever you want, man. This is us.
If shitty things happen to you, these things, they happen for a reason. I don't mean to get all airy-fairy about this, but it's something as simple as like you getting caught in traffic could have saved you from getting killed from somebody running a light down you know what I mean? Things like that happen. So I went through a point where people were looking for keyboard players, and I was so busy doing the music coordinating thing, and I was working a lot of overtime. People would ask me, and I'd be like, just no time. I can't do it. Well, Maria was making my boss was making my life really miserable at this point in time. And so I'm like, son of a bitch. I'm like, what? I was just really pissed off. And a very dear friend, Carolyn Tapp, had come in. I think you've probably met her before. Carolyn was working at ABC, and she came in with the Red Zone album, and she's like, Paul, whenever these guys are playing in LA, I never miss a show. They're amazing, and they need a keyboard player. And so I was just about to come out with, oh my God, I'm too busy. And I thought, screw that nonsense. You know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to audition. Yeah. And I did. And I was auditioning for the head of the band at the time was Jason Ball. And then Astrid came in. And that made me nervous when she walked in.
Really?
Just very quiet. And she has this presence,
Firing.
And she had that side, the side pony going over, and she was all dressed in black. And she just immediately, I kind of like froze, because it's really funny. If I jump forward to like rehearsals, oh my God, she could level you with a stare. If you hit the wrong note,
I know the stare. I'm well aware. Yes. So
I love her so much.
Oh, I know. She's sister.
So so I went and I did the audition, and then got the gig. and that's how it all started. But it all started. I never would have done it had, everything been going smoothly
Right.
with my gig. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You look at this stuff and go, wow, there's a reason for everything.
It's a catalyst. But it's funny that it's your entrance in the music performance part of Hollywood. Most bands, most musicians are down there and they're trying to get every gig that they possibly can. You're turning gigs away without, you're getting gigs in, just presented to you without you trying. It talks a lot about your character. I mentioned a lot of times with musicians here that there might be aspiring musicians that watch this show, or there are people that think they want to know more about the music business, and they just assume that every band is full of musicians that love each other and it's all easy and collecting money and living the life. But most of the time, bands stay together not because the musicians themselves are academically and fundamentally like they're virtuosos, but it's so much about personality connection. It's about the hang.
Yes, 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 yes. And it was a lot of work back then
Sure.
because we were doing all of our own. We were our own roadies.
Yeah.
I lived I was in Hancock Park on the second floor, and I had all these keyboards and amps and this, that, and the other thing, and I would break everything down. Every time we would have multiple over at Mate's studio. Remember?
Oh yeah, I know Mates. Yeah.
Yeah. And so break everything down, set everything up. I think about it now. And it was like, no wonder why we were in such great shape back then,
Yeah.
because
Right.
it constantly, and I think about it and go, wow, that was a lot of work
Yeah.
to do, and a lot of practicing. And oh man, I used to be so envious because those guys, they'd do like a couple of shots before we went on, but my fingers they'd get sloppy if I did anything. So I
Really?
stone cold sober for every show. Afterwards, it was like, okay.
Yeah, yeah. The gloves are off. Well, and that band. So you mentioned Jason had fronted the band.
Yeah.
Astrid was in the band. Did you have Mark Zonder playing drums? Is that right?
No, wait a minute. No, it was Frenchie O'Brien.
Oh, Frenchie O'Brien. Okay, so the first drummer from Animotion. All right, so you had Frenchie on drums. You had Astrid singing.
Astrid singing, and so it was Jason's girlfriend Rita
Okay.
was playing bass.
All right.
And when the change happened over there, then Charles, who I believe was engineering and doing lights,
Okay.
right?
The
Charles,
lighting guy.
and then go figure, he was an amazing bass player. So we got the call from Larry Ross, who was our manager at the time. And I remember getting the call, waking up, and he goes, "Paul, there's been a bit of a change." And Astrid and Frenchie and Charles are no longer with, Jason and Rita. And to make things even a little bit more uncomfortable, they lived next to each other.
Oh.
Each other on Fountain, in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But they said they'd really like it if you wanted to hang in. And I was like, absolutely. And that's how everything started. Oh, and then we were doing a thing with, figuring out a new name. And so I know somewhere I've got the list of the names because they were priceless. Well, it came down to two names. One was Animotion and the other one was Runaway Bride. Frenchie came up with that. Now, Runaway Bride, way before the movie.
Sure.
Before it was, part of pop culture. And I just loved the visual. I loved what it conjured up. So when it came time to vote, there's only one vote for Runaway Bride, and it was mine. I'm like, Frenchie, you came up with it. When he goes, well, I just kind of got to like Animotion. And I thought Animotion sounded like a black funk band.
Right. Yeah.
I love black funk. But
Sure.
we, what I mean? But it was, and Astrid was the one that came up. It was Anima. I think it was like Spirit and Motion and Spirit and Motion and whatnot. It was all wonderful. And obviously that was the way to go.
Yeah. Well, it's memorable, right? And it fits well on an album sleeve. And yeah,
It was definitely the way to go.
and Bill Wadhams, of course, came in as well. So you had Frenchie,
Yes,
Charles Ottavio, Astrid Plain,
exactly.
Paul Antonelli, and Bill Wadhams.
Yeah.
That I was so grateful when I started playing with Animotion in 2002. And shortly after that, we did a handful of shows. I think Bill and Astrid had talked about just doing a couple of one-off shows. And then momentum really started picking up. The 80s music,
Yes.
people were getting to the point where they had a little bit more freedom in their lives. They had their kids were getting older, so they could go out again and revisit music, and they wanted to relive the beauty and the magic of the 80s.
Yes.
So you were in the heart of this stuff, 84, 85, right when the Sunset Strip was slamming and
It was
living there.
an amazing time. It was an amazing time. Because going backwards a little bit, Jenny, I was telling you about my roommate.
Yeah.
She was leaving the Rainbow, and the guys wanted her to get a woman to replace her.
Okay.
And she's like, I can't find anybody, but my roommate can. And I think they hired me because I was Italian. Because it was kind of they owned the Rainbow Whiskey, Roxy,
right,
and all of that. And back in those days, that was just before the 80s hit. It was like 79. Everybody else was doing disco, and we were the only rock band, aside from Gazzari's next door. And so everyone at the time who would come in and be playing would hang upstairs where I was spinning. It was like, The Who, Led Zeppelin, all these people. And then going into the 80s, that whole deal, the 80s were so much fun.
I can't even imagine.
They were just a blast, and I'm really glad we lived through them.
Yeah, well, some people didn't, right? And
God bless them. God bless them. But
there's some people that are still trying to pretend like it's 1985 and live that way. It couldn't work for me, my man. I'm telling you. But there is still a magic by going into the Rainbow, and you go upstairs where the Hollywood vampires were, up in the little crow's nest up there, and
exactly. Exactly. I'd love to go back. It's been years.
Has it?
Yeah.
Great pasta, good pizza. Rest in peace, Mike Magliari. They think he just passed away. Unfortunately, the owners of both.
Yeah.
But,
it used to be Pat. Pat was from Chicago. He was upstairs, and then Tony was at the door.
That's
and,
okay.
I wonder if Tony's still around.
Probably not, unfortunately. But somebody in the chat might know, or one of you guys, if you're watching this later, you can always put it in the comments on YouTube. But so when the band took off, so Larry Ross was your manager. He stayed managing the band even when Animotion got signed, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. And Larry was amazing. Nobody had people like Larry with them. You know what I mean? It was like, I don't know what would have happened without Larry. Larry would pay for our studio time, our rehearsal time, when we would have showcases. We were being courted for a while by Don Arden. Who owned Jet Records.
Okay.
So his two big bands at the time were ELO and Air Supply.
Oh wow! Okay.
And it was really funny because I was thinking like, we just out of politics, we had to go to all the Air Supply shows. So I'm like, why can't we go to the ELO shows?
Right? Yeah. But it was a great departure for you guys, though, because both bands, all three bands are completely different.
Yeah.
But Red Zone seemed pretty hard rock, right? When that band came out, wasn't it pretty edgy?
It was very edgy. It was very, very cool. Very cool. I've got the album, and I'm dying to put it on, just to digitize it, and listen to that stuff again, because there was some good stuff. They were doing really. They were ahead of their time. They were definitely ahead of their time, and that was what's so intriguing to me. But then to see when Astrid was able to express herself, and she came out of her shell like Venus in the clamshell. It was just like, whoa, where have you been hiding out?
Right.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
Both Astrid and Bill have a real theatrical side to them, and so to see the dramatic, sort of personalities that you would see in the videos, like the Obsession video,
Yes.
But I can't believe that I didn't mention it when I talked about the lineup. The thing that really set apart that band to me was that you had a synth pop driven, sort of sound from that era, But then you had these blistering guitar chops from Don Kirkpatrick.
Yes.
Don Kirkpatrick is, I feel like, one of the most underrated, underappreciated guitarists that I've ever met in my life, because
Oh,
his tone and his he played what's exactly right for a song. That's why he's been with Rod Stewart for like 25 years, right?
yes. Oh, there should be great appreciation for Don. I'd like to think that there's, great appreciation for him. I mean, and such a great guy.
Great guy.
Such
Yeah.
a great guy. And that's what was so much fun, with the band.
Yeah.
When it made all of that. Oh man, they were just so wonderful. I remember having a birthday and I was heading into Mates for rehearsal, and I get there and I remember thinking like, God, nobody said anything. No one in the band has like given me a call to say happy birthday. And I remember thinking like, oh, so I get there and Charles, bless his heart, he opens up the little door and kind of stands there, so I can't go in. He's like, Paul, please tell me you brought my bass, because I forgot to bring his bass from home. So I'm like, I'll just go back to Hollywood and get it. Not a problem. I'm like, so I go home, I open up a beer, I'm sitting on my thing. I'm like, I'll go back when I feel like it. I go back there. Big surprise. It's like they've got all this stuff. They've got this party for me. I felt like such an ass.
Oh my God.
Here I was thinking like, they're not even acknowledging my birthday, all of this. But then, Kev, after that, they became the rule: whenever we have a party, we won't start drinking till after rehearsal.
Yeah, probably smart.
Because all of a sudden, we're playing, feeling no pain. This is when I realized, oh yeah, this has to. Anytime I'm playing, and then one by one, people are stopping, asking, stop singing. They're looking around. Bill stops singing. Everyone stops playing, and then I back away from my keyboard, and two of the keys had stuck, and I noticed they had stuck down between the little banister thing that was holding the keyboard in place. And I'm like, oh shit, it's me.
Oh God.
And it's like, okay, new rules, but it was like, but they were so wonderful. You know what I mean? Putting a whole party together and whatnot. They were just a great band to be with.
That's a pretty innocent, party story though, buddy. I mean, if I think of the 80s and I think about how bands could have gone, that one's probably pretty innocuous, but
that was one of the lighter ones.
I'm sure. Yeah. Well, at that point, you mentioned getting courted, right? So you signed a deal. I think you got your record deal with Mercury, Polygram, right?
Yes. That was Russ Regan.
Okay.
Russ Regan came in because I really thought, because with Don Arden, he had come a few times, and going back to Larry, he would, take care of all the food and whatnot. So and get the big room in Mates.
Yeah.
And the big rehearsal hall. So we looked like a real professional outfit, I mean, that was, Larry was just amazing. We were really lucky.
Did you start touring at that point right away?
No, what happened was it was at that time that Gloria Monty offered me the job at General Hospital.
Okay.
So I thought, like, an idiot, I thought my schedule was going to be basically week on, week off, because I had a music partner, because the hours were just so crazy. We could I could do one show 1 week, 4 shows the next, or 2 and 3, whatever, combo of 5 we wanted. So I thought it would give me more time to work with the band. I thought, how fantastic is this? Never in a million years thinking what would happen if we had a hit. Wow. What about tour support? I was, early 20s. I wasn't thinking in that way.
Sure.
So I'd signed a 3-year contract with those guys, and with ABC and GH, and so that was the end of that.
Oh man. You had.
But
do you remember the conversation you had to have with Animotion to say?
No. What was wonderful was they called me up and asked if I would do the video with them, which was really, really great. And I snuck out of the studio over at ABC to go over, and it was like,
no way,
over at the house. It was Bugsy Siegel's old estate up in the Hollywood Hills. Yeah, and they had just done all these repairs from the filming they had done, Beverly Hills Cop 1. And I guess with all the shootouts and whatnot, there was, a lot of damage that was done. And I believe we were the first people that they let, come in and film after they had done all of the repairs to
Wow.
the place. And they had it down, the production people, because they were like, I want to say it was like, show up at it was like 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. or something. And I think it was maybe 5 of 10 that, they just had it down. I had no idea what they were going, like with the whole eyebrow thing, right? With when I do the eyebrow thing, it was they had a French AD, and he goes, stand up against the wall, raise your eyebrow, lower your eyebrow, raise your eyebrow, lower. And I'm thinking, what the hell? What is this? I'm like, I had no idea how this was going to be pieced together at all. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Pepe Le Pew. I'm like, okay. So yeah, and they did such a great job. And then we got nominated for costuming, and I wish these days when you're up for an award, you get to say something about your entry. And if Ana Sugano and Joy Durando were able to talk about the costumes that we had, I mean, they were like historical. When Bill is wearing the gladiator, that was like Burt, was it Burt Lancaster? Ben-Hur?
Yeah.
Ben-Hur. The headpiece that Astrid was wearing when she was Cleopatra was worn by Elizabeth Taylor in Cleopatra. Part of mine is the chic was from Rudolph Valentino. You had these, like, if they had told, who won? Madonna from Material Girl. I'm like, hello, you had 500 tuxes and a pink dress.
Right. Yeah.
But if they had no sour grapes, but however.
Have you met Madonna?
You know what? She is one that I have not.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I don't think she was at that award. There was some great Nina Hagen. Oh my God, Grace Jones. There were some fun people at those.
Yeah,
awards over there.
Okay, so that was your parting ways. Then you got to go in and do the video, and then you were on your way out. Is that right?
Yes.
And you were
and then soap operas, became my thing. But it was fun watching these guys. Oh, and then have you seen the documentary, The We Are the World?
Oh my God!
Right. I kind of felt guilty because I was mad at those guys for a while, because it's like, as we were climbing the charts, right? We get up to number 6, We Are the World comes up and gets to 1. And once it got to the top, everybody froze in their positions and just started dropping. And I kept thinking, couldn't you have fed the world 2 weeks later? 2 weeks later.
Oh my God.
Self-serving, incredibly selfish, but I'm like, really? Would 2 weeks have killed you? And so I'm watching this, Kevin, last week, and I'm like going, oh my God, the fact that they could pull this off, what an amazing thing. Okay,
unreal.
I'm not so upset anymore.
So I'm curious about your perspective, because I watched it about a week ago.
Yeah.
And you've been such a part of so many award shows, and you're such a big part of the music industry right then. I remember for sure when they debuted the video, and every place across the entire world, it came out at the same time, right? So they were having people get up in the middle of the night, and I had no idea what went on behind the scenes. So,
we were doing American Music Awards at ABC.
You were doing it.
Oh yeah, we started when Dick Clark came up with it, and that was one of the shows that I did back in the day before I went over, to General Hospital there. Yeah. And so we would just sit there and watch all the rehearsals and all of this. So for a while, I thought they had come from the Grammys, but they came from the American Music Awards.
Yeah.
And my friend Sherry Belafonte, she's Harry's daughter. So I told her, I gave her a buzz afterwards. I said, I had no idea your dad, it was his idea. She goes, it was not only his idea, but I happened to be at the dinner. She goes, I was at the dinner when Dad pitched it to Ken Cragen, and they were talking about the people that they wanted. I said, I had no idea.
Wow.
It was,
yeah.
But to see how they pulled that off.
In one night. That's the crazy thing. They figured out a way to get all of the artists there because they were going to be at the American Music Awards. And there were a few that didn't, that flew in anyway, right? They talked about Dylan and Bruce Springsteen,
Yes.
and
And
they all came
Prince,
in.
remember that whole thing? And
Okay,
feeling like she was used, as kind of like bait to get
right.
Prince to come over.
And Prince didn't want to do it around everybody else because he felt it was too claustrophobic, and so he said, "I'll do it, but I'm going to do it on my time, my
Yes.
own way." And
Didn't even think about it, what they were saying about, it was, and you could see the like discomfort in some people's. I felt bad for Dylan. Oh my God, he
yeah,
just looked so uncomfortable because he looked like he's seeing everybody just kick ass, you know?
oh god, yeah. Well, yeah, there's some virtuosos
Yeah,
in there, and some of some real surprises too, right? I love how humble Huey Lewis was when he said, "I'm sitting there with Stevie Wonder and all these cats that can
yes,
sing, and I'm just like this kind of, rock pop dude." But he
and
nailed it. He was so
that was
good.
supposed to be Prince's part.
He got Prince's part. That's
and
right.
and
Yep.
that whole thing, and it was interesting too, because when you go to these things and you see people around their handlers and whatnot, like
Ye
watch this,
right,
and no one was allowed in there. How cool was
right.
that? I mean, it just added to it. And then you could see the people having a great time, like the Pointer Sisters. They just
Yeah,
looked like they were having a hell of a time. Cindy Lauper too.
oh my god, Cindy, yeah, like, eh, you know, there were a couple of unfortunate things, right? Al Jarreau had a little bit too much to drink, and he was a little saucy, right? Kept having to sing his lines over. Waylon Jennings
Oh,
leaving, walking out, you're like, "Dude,
yes.
okay." And now I've been thinking about that part
Yeah.
a bunch, right? It's so funny. So I see some people in the chat talking about where the We Are the World doc streaming. So yeah, it's just out on Netflix right now. And the concept, I'll just for a quick synopsis, the concept is that when they put this thing together, they had to Lionel Richie sort of assembled all these people, right? So he got Quincy
Right.
Jones to
Ken
produce it.
Cragen started
But
by reaching out to all the people.
right, and he knew that Lionel had the contacts, right? So he had Lionel. They wanted Michael Jackson to be a massive part of it, so he was going to be huge, a writer for it, and they wanted Stevie to do it, Stevie Wonder, and Stevie was taking so long, and he wouldn't respond back, he wouldn't commit,
They wanted to
right?
write. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it ended up being pretty much Lionel and Michael Jackson writing the
Yeah.
tune, and Quincy Jones helping produce this thing. But they got all of those artists together. They said, "How can we get them all here in one night to do? Because we don't want to have people come in one at a time. We want this to be a group thing." So they get them to all come in immediately following the American Music
Yeah.
Awards. So the downbeat of the show, some people do their performance and then they go to the studio, and they all do it at A&M Studios, which is now Henson
Right.
Studios, right in Hollywood. And unbelievably, Quincy produces this thing, so they've got this thing running as tight a ship as they possibly can, and everything is rigid, right? They know that they're gonna record the choruses first. They're gonna get everybody together, and then they're gonna have individual performances of the one line from the verse, and so there are gonna be a few people that they're gonna showcase. And there's a little bit of there's an ego thing going on because some people want to be the soloists, and some people are surprised to be the soloist. But in the end, I really felt like there was very little ego involved
Yeah.
at all. I mean, it blew my mind how
Remember the famous the little sign that Quincy put up? Check your egos at the door. Everyone
that's
came
right.
in, and then I was so surprised to hear, because I would have thought that Diana Ross would have like divaed out a bit, but she ended up being like the last
No.
to go, saying like just crying, saying like I just don't want this night to end. I was very
Was
impressed
that the
with that.
best? Oh my
Really,
god. Walking around getting autographs from all the
it
people that
was
yeah, man,
so sweet.
and a really well-produced
Very,
documentary. I mean, this thing, they had so much footage. How cool that they had all this footage that what a surprise, right? That they had so much
I
detail,
had
but and
no idea
oh,
what a gift that was to see. I encourage everybody to see it. Everybody to see it. Wonderful piece.
amen. Well, this was not necessarily an endorsement for it, but I do agree. But I am blown away by your nominations and recipients. I mean, your reception of like Emmys. You've been nominated for so many Emmys that I was looking at the list. How many have you been nominated
I
for?
think it's 15 or 16.
Oh my god, this is
You
insane,
just
man.
have to sleep with
I,
the right people, and then you
is that what? Well, actually, okay. So, uh, I Yeah, I had an adult actress who was also crossed over to mainstream on the show where she talked about that very thing. And actually, that really is how she landed a lot of her roles. And she's very open about it. I think you're being facetious. I know that that's
Yes,
not
I
true,
think.
but we have a mutual friend though that I talked to about my friend Paul Antonelli, who has been such a big part of daytime Emmys and a lot of awards. And my friend said, "I just love his wife, Diane." And I said, "Oh, really?
Warren,
Okay."
yes.
Oh, yes. And so Diane Warren is a massive songwriting partner and somebody that you've worked with a lot in the past,
Oh,
right?
no, well, all right. Let me tell you an interesting thing that we just realized not so long ago. When we got up into the top 10, we realized, Diane, that she had her first big hit in the top 10 with us. It was
Same time.
yes, it was DeBarge's Rhythm of the Night. And so,
Wow. So Rhythm of the Night and Obsession are on the same
yes, and
time.
we found out
Okay.
there was a fan from Germany who had sent me the chart. He had, and this was not that long ago, and wanted to see if I could get everyone to sign it. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, going, "Oh my God, Rhythm of the Night is on here," and I'm like, "Di, look at this." And she goes, "Oh my God, I loved Obsession." I'm like, "Yeah, but look at you've got that you started out there, and then you went like crazy."
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Now,
okay.
she's on her 15th Oscar nomination this year.
Unbelievable,
Yes.
man. 15 Oscars. Okay, so we're gonna get into Diane in a second, but you just reminded me, and I apologize about my ADD. During Obsessions recording, because that was the thing, like, you guys signed your deal with Polygram, you're recording this album, and from what I remember Bill Bottom's saying, the producer of the record said, "Hey, you know what? I've just got one other song I want you to try. There's this song that Michael DeBar and Holly Knight
Yes.
wrote, and I think you guys would be
Yes.
great for it," and brings that in. Do you remember how that
Oh
one went
yes, I
down?
remember listening to it, and we were at Mates. And it was it was from A Night in Heaven, and they had recorded it for that, the Christopher Atkins and Leslie Ann Warren film,
Okay.
and it was the last song. It was the last song, and we're listening to it on cassette, of course. And
Right.
but John had a he had a vision for it that I couldn't see. You know what I mean?
Oh,
At the time, that was just you know
you
it was
didn't hear
like,
it.
no, it was just
Yeah.
amazing. It was wonderful. What a great stroke that was. And I don't know how he heard it originally. I don't know if he had seen the movie or if he was maybe talking with Michael Chapman, who was a big
Okay.
producer at the time, right? And he
Yeah.
was doing a lot of work, I think, with Holly and Michael DeBar, and Holly was on fire at the time. Remember, she had done, oh my God, Love Is a Battlefield for Benatar, and Better Be Good to
Yeah.
Me, and The Best for Tina Turner, Never,
Right.
Never for Heart. I
Right.
mean, just to name, truly to name a few, but it was just like,
Sure. Man, but well, I mean, obviously, it did fantastic things for Animotion,
yes.
and I have had a couple of like cursory chats with Michael DeBar about that, and he brings it up every once in a while about that song that he didn't end up recording himself doing, but it blew up for everybody else, and I mean that's really the sign of great songwriting, right?
Yes.
Is
And then it does not hurt him,
no,
a co-writer of that song, you know.
sure, hey, making money, paying for his mortgages, and
Yeah.
so songwriting wise. I mean, I'll go back to then, General Hospital, right? So Animotion, you finish the
Yep.
video, you're on to General Hospital. Is that the Noah Drake era? Is that Rick Springfield
Well,
era?
yep, yep.
Okay,
It was
all right.
Luke and Laura, and yes, Noah Drake. He was going out with Tiffany. Yes, it was like all of this stuff. It was just, yeah, Jesse's Girl. All of that was
Yeah,
coming out when he was on the show. And that's when the
it's
marriage started to happen. That's what was so wonderful about Gloria, because nobody was using songs at the time. And she,
oh,
this older woman, she was just kick ass. And I mean, she kicked the
yeah,
shit out of me in a great way to show me the ropes. I mean,
yeah,
stuff that I still use to this day. You know what I mean? That she taught me. But songs, she
like
got us using songs. And then when we, what was it? It was Rise, Herb Alpert's Rise. it was for that famous the Luke and Laura rape scene, and of course they ended up becoming lovers later. And Gloria was getting, just, oh my God, they're like, how can you glorify rape? And she said what some people call rape, I call a seduction, and that made them even crazier. But then whatchamacallit went up to #1. Rise.
Wow.
So Herb Alpert gave Gloria a gold record, and then we did things like "Baby Come to Me." Patty Austin and James Ingram was another one that we used.
Did I just hear Jerry laughing in the background?
Was that no? Actually,
Oh,
no. Actually, no. He was folding a piece of paper, and it sounded like a laugh.
oh, it did. I thought he was laughing at the. All right. So anyway,
Now he's laughing.
okay.
But it was just an amazing marriage. The songs and soaps, and we used to get calls like just thousands and thousands of calls. It was nice. It was nice.
So so at that point, I mean, are you in the studio and getting scripts and being instructed? Okay, so how does that go? I mean, even so back then, did Gloria come to you and say, "I need something in this
Oh, she would
vein"?
say, we should leave it up. It was great because I had this budget. I could go in, get the records, of course, no CD.
Yeah,
So get like
right.
a ton of records, go through stuff, listen, and put my arsenal together, for when we'd have like
Okay.
the Act 6 montages, the lovemaking montages were the big thing. And
Sure.
so I would just go through a ton of stuff. And at the time I was able to write cues, music cues before things got, then it got union, things got a little weird. And but it was just it was a great time.
So you had a lot of freedom.
There was so much freedom. We didn't have to get licenses for the songs. We
Wow.
didn't. We came under this very. It was sometimes called the umbrella policy, or the gray area, or the one time only. And it was like, technically we came because we didn't repeat the shows. So we came under the umbrella of like news and stuff where you could use anything commercially available, on a one time only. Well, then we started kind of stretching that rule, because if you're doing a wedding and you're cutting to commercial with the bride and the groom dancing, you're not going to come back to commercial with a different song. Then we
Right.
found that, okay, we're stretching it a little bit more, and that's okay. And I've got to tell you, the songs went on the cue sheets, so people were getting paid. They were getting paid. We just didn't have to get clearance. We didn't have to get. And in all those years, I might have had 5 people call me up to say like, oh, don't use the music, because they were within their rights to say, I don't want my music used on the show anymore, and then we'd have to stop. Only like 5 times. I used George Thorogood,
Wow.
I Drink Alone, there was a big accident. One of the Quartermain kids was driving drunk. The car flips over. A little bear goes out, and the radio is still on, and George is playing I Drink Alone coming from the radio. Well, his lawyers call me up, and they're like, well, did you get, so I go through, I let them know what's going on, how, we're able to do this. I said, I'm so sorry. I said, we get like millions of people that come, and they're always commenting on the music, and they're like, and I said, but I'll stop using this music. They're like, oh, well, wait a minute, how many people?
Right.
No, you
Yeah.
don't have to stop using this music. I'm like,
Money, money talks, baby. Yeah.
but really, because they would have to do, they were alerted that their music was used anytime they would see their statements,
Yeah.
distributions from the Performance Rights Society. And
Sure.
so I'd use anything from the Beatles, Streisand, anything in between, Stones, and I was never. They were all cool with it, except for 5.
So at what point did that change where you actually had to have
Ah,
clearance for the use of
it
the same?
changed when all of a sudden different platforms started airing more than once. Computers
Okay.
came into being once. The networks started. You would be able to get things on demand.
Okay.
Then it's airing more than once. And
Gotcha.
so
Okay.
then at that point, I was doing double duty, and you would do a soundtrack for the foreign territories and a soundtrack for domestic. So
Really?
anything, but you had to be really careful, because all of a sudden it's like Canada was getting pissed off because they would be seeing and hearing that, oh, some of their favorite tunes were playing in General Hospital in the US, but they would get the foreign version
Of
with
course.
songs that they
Yeah.
didn't know. And they're like, what's going on? And so that was eventually it got too complicated to do too, and it was too easy to mess up. If somebody happened
Yeah.
to, play the wrong version, then all of a sudden you're
You're liable, right? There's a
oh, yeah.
litigious. So you came up, then you had to go through all the clearance, sync licensing, had to go, through lawyers and make sure that songs
Well,
were,
we just got very, very uh, what would be very judicious about what we used. It was very few and far between because we don't have the
okay.
time. We're doing,
Yeah.
doing 5 shows a week, actually taping now 6 shows a week, and you don't have time to wait for clearance. You
Right.
can't be wait. You need it immediately.
Yeah.
Hours, not days. Sometimes it takes months to get proper clearance on something, for a project.
So, okay. Yeah. So what do you do now for days? I mean, you've been with Days of Our Lives for a long
It
time,
was since
right?
2011. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's 13 years.
So on
And
days, what happens is Ken Corday, the owner, is the chief composer. Um, yes, with Brent Nelson, his composing partner, and they have a huge library of music that they've done. They do orchestral scores over at the Eastwood sound stages at Warner Brothers, which are
okay.
just wonderful. And the budgets get really tight, so Ken pays for this stuff himself. And they
Wow.
also have a really big library of tunes that they've written, co-written with other songwriters and whatnot. So there isn't that problem going out and and getting the clearance, which is really good because again, the time, it's so
Yeah.
time consuming getting all this stuff done.
I wondered about streaming because in that 13 years, right? So streaming on all these different platforms, that's all right within the last 5, 6 years that thing has changed a lot, right?
Yes.
Where they're going after getting royalties. And so the fact that he owns a sound library and it's there, you've got a
Yeah.
database. And so when you're putting together this music, tell me about how you construct for a show. So there's a taping for a show on
No,
well, today's Monday.
it's changed so much. To quickly go back to when I was with Gloria, we used to play the music live in the on the set while they were no, we didn't play the music, we programmed it live. They were all put on sound cards that looked like 8-track tapes. So we would get
Yeah.
the director's script the night before, would see what all the camera cuts were, would go through and would score it, with numbers. There were probably, I don't know, 10,000 music cards that we have, and I don't know how we managed to commit them to memory. But
Wow.
some of them we would name, certain certain things that would like just stick in our minds. But
Yeah.
you'd be playing, everything would be going great for dress rehearsal. Then you'd go to taping, and you'd see, oh, the director would go out and give some notes, and then they'd come over and say, oh. As an aside, come over to the music. Oh, Paul, by the way, where they were having the lovemaking scene at the end, we've changed the beat around. She's going to pull a knife out under the pillow and kill him. Okay, in 5, 4, 3, and you're scrambling to get the music and get it all right, because if you blow it, then you've got to stay and make the tech team stay and lay the music in wild with copious notes about what they have to do in editing, and they didn't look favorably on that because that would take time.
I'm sure.
So it was just like crazy. Now that we do Pro Tools, they send me a quick time of the show, fully edited.
With no
Yeah,
music.
and now I've got my little. I do it on my laptop, cut it on Pro Tools. I cut the music, I edit it myself on a little my external hard drives that have all the music on it, and I can be anywhere, anywhere, and do
Yeah.
it. So it's come such a long way. Never in a million years did I think that I'd be able to leave the studio, because the producers always
Totally.
liked to hear what you were playing, what was going to be happening. So in case they didn't like what you were playing, like, oh, Gloria, she had a couple of wonderful sayings. When she didn't like something, you would hear she was a short thing, but she was like a powder keg. And you'd hear her little boots click, 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 click down the hall. And you're like, please don't let her be coming into my room. Then boom, the door would open. And she'd say, dear, do you see how you're single-handedly sabotaging this scene with the music you're playing? I'm like, okay, well, guess you didn't like that cue, did you, Glow? Or the other one, my favorite one was, dear, do you see how you're unraveling the tapestry of this show thread by thread with this music? Yeah. Then so you knew it's like, okay, again, you didn't like the cue, Gloria. What do we do?
Oh my God. You are so theatrical, man. Tell me that you've done some acting in your past.
No. Actually, the only acting really has been with a Radio Werewolf, with the Gothic horror band I was with after Animotion, and we did a movie called Mortuary Academy. And funny, Christopher Atkins was in it.
Oh, really?
He was at Paul Bartel and Mary Warrenov. And we played ourselves, Radio Werewolf. Wolfman Jack played our manager. And so we were driving a car that was called the Turbo Stud. And apparently we get killed in this car accident. And then Tracy Walter, the actor Tracy reanimates us. He's going to Mortuary Academy as well. He reanimates us so we could play a bar mitzvah at the end of the movie. So we played 1960 Cadillac hearse. At the end of the movie, and that's kind of the extent.
No Academy Awards.
No.
I think you may have missed some calling, but it's hard to wear that many hats doing what you do. But
it's a lot of time. It's very time consuming. But again, working remotely really helps because you can change your environment.
Speaking of, man, so I mean, so you've been doing remote for a while now.
Yeah, since about 2017, pre-pandemic even.
And if we don't have to talk about all the beautiful places you're getting to go and still be able to work, but I know that you're headed to Sedona soon.
Yeah, Mexico first.
Yes, and you're able to work from there, and you'll get some vacation time.
Well, I'll find some playtime, but it's still a lot of work.
Oh yeah, because you're actually going to be there for an awards show, right?
No, we're going. I'm going to be here for the SCL Awards, the Society of Composers and Lyricists, and we're going to be cheering Diane on because her Flamin' Hot is up for an award, the same one that she's up for the Oscar this year, and those because the Oscars I think they're coming up, March 10th.
Yeah. And then you've got Mexico.
And then we'll head to Sedona.
Okay, in Sedona, and there's a vacation. And you have to remind me again.
Well, we're going to be heading off to Greece and Italy with Dave Cause and his band of merrymakers. That's going to be in May. So all of this stuff is just coming up. Coming up before we know it. It's like we're trying to figure out what we need to pack for Christmas vacation because that's what's going to happen. It's crazy how fast the time's been going.
You know how to live right though. I mean, there was in Sedona, there were some there was a link that I was supposed to remember and I forgot.
SedonaVacationVillas.com.
There we go. Yes, I'll make sure that that's in the show notes. I need to make sure that we don't miss out on that one.
Check out. Jerry's got some amazing places in Sedona. Wonderful places.
And you're there quite a bit.
Yeah, right? Well, we go in the places when they're not renting out, and they're renting out an awful lot. So I like to go whenever something is free.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a special place. I know that a lot of people go for retreats, and I would think if you spend some time there, is that a great place for you?
Wonderful. They've got the vortexes there, and Jerry's main house is on Airport Mesa Vortex, so he calls it Little House on the Vortex.
Nice.
And it's really it's magical, absolutely magical. When I first walked in. And these floor-to-ceiling windows and these crazy-ass views of these red rocks. And I'm like, really, it's that stuff that takes your breath away. And Jerry's going like, it's nice to see it through somebody else's eyes because I see this all the time. And sometimes You don't, and you do what we call the loop, and you walk around the block, as it were, and you're going around a corner, and then you see this other incredible vista that looks like, what planet am I on? I mean, it's incredibly special. Incredible.
The light, right? I mean, that's the thing. When I moved, I told you I had a sabbatical in Santa Fe for a little
Right.
bit. The light is what got me.
Yes.
I'm astounded by the lighting down there. It's a different light than any place else. I know a lot of artists go to Santa Fe because the light is so different. It's a great
So it
place to
must be the
paint.
same. Because I
Yeah.
noticed that depending on it looks different so many times, different times of the day, sunrise to, even when you have clouds go by and cast these shadows on the red rocks. And then lately they've been getting snow, a little bit of snow. And
wow.
it's like, Jerry likes to say, it's like God took like a little, confectionery sugar, sifter
Right.
and it never paralyzes, Sedona.
Yeah.
It just makes it look stunning. And then the next day it's gone, so you get to
Oh,
enjoy it. And oh man, it's really,
yeah.
really beautiful.
Well, you deserve it, man. I mean, I know you work hard,
Thank
but
you.
you've seemed like you figured out a way to work smart and, really appreciate life too.
Oh yes,
Like,
not really.
I think I think the next time that you and I get to hang, I should come and do a little live podcast from the Sedona, from the
Oh my,
Vortex.
yes, you're getting applause from Jerry over there. Oh my God, Kev, I think that's an excellent idea. And then talk about
Yeah.
your backdrop. I mean,
Oh
geez,
yeah.
you just go out on his patio, and it's ridiculous. Or you could do it from his hot tub.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh yes. Oh, man. Well, I know that you in Southern California, you guys had your share of crazy weather this last week, man. It's like, you're having
Not
Portland
that
weather.
earthquake. The one, it was the epicenter was in Malibu just the other day. And over here, it was a nice roll. Apparently, it was a big jolt in Malibu, but by the time it hit Santa Monica, it was a nice roll.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's like, I mean, really, I'm not making light. I know they can be dangerous, but any earthquakes I've been in have been like really fun. Like, I love feeling the power of the earth. And as long as, bureaus and, refrigerators aren't flying at you, it can be a really fun ride. And,
Oh my God.
and
You are
I
so
actually
fun.
slept through the big one that happened. And I heard that Keith Richards was the only other one who slept through it. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh boy, that was, it happened to be, I was out really late that night, got back at about 3:30 in the morning. So when I went to sleep, I mean, I hit hard, and it hit only like an hour later. I didn't know anything until like 8 o'clock the next day, because I was in
Wow.
Palisades
Really?
on Bedrock, and my place was fine. But when I went across the hill to Santa Monica, anything that was like over 2 stories seemed to be level to, what, it was amazing. Amazing.
That's nuts,
But it
man.
can be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Well, the fact that you can find the magic, in some catastrophic things is pretty. But that, like I said at the beginning of the show, when it feels to me that when you first meet Paul Antonelli, having never met you before, you made me feel like I was the most important person in the room. I really feel like I'd known you
You
for my
are.
entire
You
life.
are.
Oh, you really are a beautiful human being, man. I am,
Oh,
and
Kev, right back at you for sure.
we've been trying to do this for a couple
And now I'm
years.
excited about you coming out to Sedona.
Oh my
That'd be
gosh, man.
great. And I'm
There
to do
might,
it from Mexico.
oh, that'd be
Yeah.
so fun. I'm ready. I am ready. I love the Pacific Northwest. I never minded the amount of rain that we got until the pandemic. When I was locked at home and I realized, oh, the seasonal affective thing it's legit, man. When you have 30 days straight of rain and you haven't seen the
Yes.
sun, it's not a healthy thing,
Oh my God.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Mexico, Sedona, even Santa Monica. I'm gonna try and find some
Cape
time
Cod.
where I can come and see
Cape
you.
Cod. We could do it from back east.
I've never been, honestly. I mean, I've certainly been to Boston, but yeah, no, yeah, I'd love to come and meet your family, have your sis
And
cook
you're
me some.
really well.
Oh, buddy, believe me, I can eat. I haven't missed a lot of meals in my life, so yeah, Paul Antonelli, I'm so grateful for you, buddy.
Oh, I am for you, Kev. I am, and I'm so glad we were able to do this.
Me too. Me too. Guys, if you're watching this and you got here late, go back and listen to some really remarkable stories. I mean, Paul has a fun history in Hollywood, man, from the early days and his arrival from back east and all the way up to a long tenure in the daytime television. I guess you call them soaps, so
Yes,
that's what they are,
yes,
man.
yes.
But
They at its
I
finest.
I think I'm sure they appreciate having your energy there too, my
It's
friend.
a good. It's
So
a good time. It's a good time.
uh, if you guys got here late, don't forget, subscribe to this channel, like it, share it. I've got some really fun ones coming up too. Some related to the music syncing as well. Mark Ferrari, who was in a big hair band back
I
in the
love
day.
rock.
But so Mark is actually, I'm going to have him come and talk a lot about music sync and a lot of this stuff too. So it'll be great to, I'll mention to him that we discussed a little bit
Please
of,
do. Please do.
but
I used a bunch of his stuff over the years.
really? Okay. I wondered about that because it's essentially licensing the songs that were made popular, but not by the original artist, right? So it's less, it allows for budgets to be able to use
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
So Mark will be fun and a great Jeff Beck episode too with Jennifer Batten and Jonathan Joseph. So subscribe to the channel or you go to accesskevin.com and you can find out what's coming up. So Paul Antonelli, thank you very, very much. And please thank Jerry for sharing you in dinner time this evening. And all of you guys, I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. Have a wonderful Valentine's Day. It's
Thank
lucky.
you, Kevin. Thank you. I
All
love
right.
it.